Since I was 10, I never really believed in God. Not out of rebellion, not out of anger, just from a general sense that religion seemed unnecessary. I've always leaned more toward the empirical, what can be tested, measured, observed, and for the most part, science answers the big questions, or at least tries to. But over time, I realized that dismissing something just because I don't believe it isn't exactly intellectually rigorous. So I decided to take a closer look at Christianity. Not to prove it wrong, but to ask, could it actually be true? Not definitely, not probably, just possibly. It turns out, people way smarter than me have been asking that question for centuries. And while I'm still skeptical, I found a few things that make the question worth asking. Let's start with the obvious question. Why is there something instead of nothing? God, an eternal, non-physical being who caused the universe to exist out of nothing. Philosophers like Thomas Aquinas and modern thinkers like William Lane Craig argue that everything that begins must have a cause. The universe had a beginning, so something or someone must have started it. Some say the universe came from quantum fluctuations. Others suggest it's always existed in some form, through cycles, multiverses, or unknown physics. These models are often described in scientific language, but they're not exactly proven. They're just possibilities. Both sides are guessing beyond what we can observe. Christianity offers a cause, but it's untestable. Science offers mechanisms, but they also assume laws and particles that existed before space and time, which nobody can demonstrate. In other words, both views go past evidence at some point. Neither feels like a full answer. This is the fine-tuning argument. It's not just about life existing. It's about how incredibly precise the universe's structure is. Christians argue that the constants in physics like gravity, the speed of light, and the strength of nuclear force are so precisely balanced that even a tiny variation would make life impossible. They say this kind of precision is more likely the result of design, not chance. Skeptics say maybe we just happen to be in a universe that allows for life, because if we weren't, we wouldn't be here to ask. That's called the anthropic principle. Others propose a multiverse, where every possible combination of physics exists somewhere, and we just got lucky. Design feels purposeful, but we can't test it. Chance feels random, but we can't test multiverses either. So once again, both explanations rest on something unprovable. We're just choosing between two kinds of faith, one in a creator, the other a cosmic possibility. Right and wrong, good and evil, are they just ideas or something real? If there's a God, then moral laws like justice, love, or human dignity have a foundation. They aren't just made up. They reflect the character of a moral creator. That's why Christians say things are truly wrong, even if society says otherwise. Morals can be explained without God. They might come from evolution, social contracts, or psychological instincts. We care about fairness and empathy because they helped our ancestors survive, not because they came from a higher power. The Christian view gives you an anchor but assumes the anchor exists. The secular view explains how morals might have developed but struggles to explain why they should matter universally. If morality is just an evolved feeling, then technically, there's nothing wrong with anything, unless we decide it's wrong. That works okay until we run into situations like genocide or slavery, where most of us still say, no, that's objectively evil. So the question becomes, are we just pretending morality is real, or is it pointing to something bigger? Here's where Christianity gets specific. Jesus of Nazareth was crucified, buried, and rose from the dead. His followers claimed to see him alive after death, talking, eating, walking around, and they weren't vague about it. They were so convinced, many of them were tortured or killed without recanting. People throughout history have believed weird things. Maybe the disciples had visions. Maybe the story got exaggerated. Maybe Jesus' body was moved and confusion turned into legend. Hallucinations, grief, deception. It's not like those concepts are unheard of. The Christian story is dramatic and unprecedented. Skeptical theories are more familiar, but also less satisfying. If you take the historical facts seriously, that Jesus existed, was executed, and his followers really believe he came back, it's not easy to explain it all the way. But accepting resurrection means accepting a supernatural event, and that's a massive leap, especially if you're skeptical of miracles in general. So it comes down to this. What do you think is more likely? A one-time resurrection or multiple people being deeply mistaken? Christians don't just believe, they feel. They talk about personal transformation, inner peace, even answers to prayers. For them, God isn't just a theory, he's active. If God exists, then of course people would experience him. Billions of people throughout history, from all different cultures, claim to have had some kind of encounter with the divine. Human beings are emotional. The brain is powerful. We see patterns, assign meaning, and seek comfort. Religious experience might just be psychology in action, like placebo effects or confirmation bias. It's quite difficult to verify another person's spiritual experience, but it's also kind of arrogant to say they're all just deluded. That doesn't mean they're right, it just means it's worth listening before dismissing. I'm still not convinced Christianity is fully true, but I'm also not convinced it's false. It explains a lot: the origin of the universe, structure of morality, and historical roots of one of the most influential movements in human history. It even tries to make sense of suffering, purpose, and love. But it also asks for belief in things that can't be proven. Miracles, resurrection, a creator, those aren't small things to accept. Then again, science, at least the kind that tries to explain everything, also asks us to believe in things that we can't fully see. Infinite universes, spontaneous existence, consciousness as a byproduct of electricity. So maybe the real question isn't, is Christianity irrational? Maybe it's, which explanation makes the most sense of everything we've seen and everything we feel? For now, I'm not ready to say yes, but I'm not ready to say no either. And maybe asking good questions is better than pretending I already have all the answers.